Now, the finale of Invincible Season 2 is here, is out. I've watched it. And man, what an episode. Just translating all that from the comics, the story, the fights that Mark and Angstrom Levy have. It was incredible. And of course, the other mini stories that he added to end of the season. I just can't wait for season 3, but right now I'm here with another video to compare the episode to the comics. I already did the same for the last episode 7. If you want to check that one out before this one or the other way around, I'm fine with it. But now let's get to this one. Now, the opening scene of Nolan going through the Viltrumite assessment, to be worthy before he's executed, is just like in the comics, which is just a funny, stupid concept when you think about how it's basically just being, we want you to be healthy enough so that we can kill you. The part where General Krieg also beats him up, having that resentment towards him because of Nolan being rebellious, and the two Viltrumites taking him away, one saying he used to look up to him, which was changed from the comics, which he actually said that his father used to tell him stories about him. And the scene where he meets Alan is also the same in the comics, with almost the same dialogue, which later in the episode, just like in the comics, where they are right next to each other, or is it facing each other, but either way, now their conversation is a bit similar in the comics, which I think will continue in the next season, because in the comics it had its own chapters and its own mini story of Alan breaking Nolan out of prison. Now in the episode, Alan tells Nolan about Mark and trying to recruit him for the coalition, and also wanting to recruit him after finding out about the Traxxons or what happened there from Mark, and of course how Nolan have changed. But Nolan at this point just wants his son to be left alone, just be in peace, and tells Alan about his regrets. In the comics, he says something similar, but it's just a simplified version of this whole moment that he has, and tells Alan that he misses his wife. Now, he missing his wife, that dialogue is something that in the comics he says to just a random prisoner, which at that point in the comics too, his spine had not healed yet, and therefore not gone through that rite or ritual or assessments of the Viltrumite. And of course, hadn't also met Alan at this point too. And that's just one of the things about this show. Certain stories in the comics are pulled from chapters way ahead, whilst certain stories at this point have also not been touched. Now, Alan and Nolan's story is going to continue next season, with Alan going to break him out of prison, and even before that, they are going to become friends. And through their conversations, Alan tells Nolan about his newfound strength, and in their jail time together too, the Viltrumites tried so many times to kill Alan unsuccessfully. Everything that they tried failed. And I can't wait for people to really see how strong Alan has become next season. Now let's get to the fight between Invincible and Angstrom Levy, which the show starts off with a random guy just jogging and Invincible in the background just to reveal the title with the wordplay. Yeah, the show likes to do that a lot. Now Angstrom Levy holding Mark's mother and brother hostage against him is exactly like the comics. The dialogue is almost the same, but there are certain things that they added to the story. Mark not knowing who Angstrom is just like the comics, and being explained to that, oh, he's that guy, which angers Angstrom, which in the comics, he hits Mark's mother, prompting Mark to charge at him, and that is where he's sent into different dimensions one by one. All the dimensions that are in the comics that Mark goes through are also shown in the show.
Back! No one's eating me!
Oh, egads, it speaks! I want my taste!
He opens another portal as soon as I come out, with no gap in between them, so it's just a tunnel to somewhere else.
How did you get here? Where did you come from?
Talk about your bad luck.
You're a man who dresses like a bat, and your name is... Well, don't you think that's kind of lazy?
For Batman, it stayed true, to the comics, but for Spider-Man, they changed, him to Agent Spider-Man or something, Agent Spider. In the comics, he was full-on Spider-Man, Peter Parker, with a costume and everything, fighting Dark Ark, which later in the comics also, they explore a mini story with when he was in that dimension and what happened there before he got back into his own, which they may or may not explore in maybe season 3 or its own mini story or special. Now I forgot to mention that when Mark got home in the comics, Debbie was bruised and bleeding a little, but in the show, like when Mark got there, she was fine. It was later in the episode that he started beating on her, which is also like in the comics. She tried to fight back in both, especially in the show, but unsuccessfully. Debbie getting her arm broken is just like in the comics, but it's so much worse, like it's broken clean off and more bloodier. Now the episode also made Oliver much more involved in the story and the stakes. In the comics he was, but it was minimized, like there was no emphasis on that, like Debbie putting her life, her body on the line for him like it is in the show. And even when she was getting beaten up and her arm broken, all she cared about was Oliver's well-being. And it just showed the progress, the love that she has for him, how it has grown ever since he came into her life. As I said before, there are certain moments that they added in the show, like Debbie telling Angstrom of his jealousy of Mark just because he's a hero in this dimension and he's now, turning out to be the villain. As well as a scene in the house where Mark almost beat him, which never happened in the comics. Now in the episode, Mark tries to calm Angstrom down, telling him of what actually happened, that he tried to save his life, which of course triggered some memories of his that we see later on. Memories of his past and the past of his other selves in their own dimensions. He remembered, of course, what happened, but it was overshadowed by, the pain that his other self suffered at the hands of Invincible, who was just a murderous bastard in all those dimensions, which is different from the comics. In the comics, we don't see all this. The only similar thing is Mark trying to tell him of what actually happened, but in that, Mark was actually, angry and screaming it at him, instead of the show where he's actually calmly trying to tell him, trying to appeal to him and tell him that he was actually a good guy who tried to save his life. Now, just like the comics, when Mark gets back from the other dimension and sees the aftermath of what Angstrom has done to his mother, charges at him, and of course, the hand-to-hand battle begins with them.
What did you do to her? I don't want you to die in some random dimension. I want to do it myself.
Now, in both the show and the comics, Angstrom wanted Mark to suffer before he died. But in the comics, also to soften him up because he was not confident that he was able to beat him in terms of strength and hand-to-hand combat. Which in the show, he says something similar, but they removed the part where he said he was not sure how strong Invincible was and not confident in beating him one-on-one. But of course, him wanting to kill him with his own hands is similar in both mediums. Mark going insane and freaking going ham, beating him to a pulp and quote-unquote killing him is also just the same.
I'll never let anyone ever.
As well as the PTSD, I thought you were stronger. The whole dialogue, 9 yards, everything is just the same in the comics.
I thought you were stronger. Oh God. I had to. I didn't have a choice. I had to kill him. He tried to kill me. He was gonna kill my mom and my brother.
The aftermath of it all, with the Guardians of the Globe coming from the future to save Mark and Eve confessing to him, is also the same. Also, when the Guardians from the future found Mark, they said it was after 15 years. The show changed it to 20 years. And in the show, they said that the Mark who survived this, after 20 years, he became different. And the world was also never the same since his disappearance. But in the comics, they left it vague, like he was lost to them. That was it.
Mark, wait. I love you, Mark. I have for a very long time, and when you disappeared, I was devastated.
Eve.
No, don't tell me. Tell her. Tell her you love her. Or tell her you don't love her. Just tell her something.
Mark returns home into his own dimension and Cecil calls him. But in the comics, when he gets back to his dimension, Eve and Amber were already there and Mark goes to them. Now at this point in the story, in the comics, Mark and Amber hadn't broken up yet. And this is mainly because of how the story is structured. It's only in the show where they've broken up, just last episode. We also saw the aftermath of Debbie, her situation, Cecil and his men coming in to take care of her, take her to the, Pentagon, which in the comics, they never showed that. They just showed meeting her there. And they later go home with, April being there, which also in the comics, it is drawing this point where she's actually hired, which the show moved up that story beat. Now, Mark's PTSD and guilt is just more emphasized in this episode than in the comics. Like, in that, they just breeze past that. In the show, like, throughout, after that, like, he just went through it, with them even giving him a montage. Like, Mark was just in pain, and they really emphasized the fact that he didn't want to be like his father. Up to the point where, in the end, he even told his mother he wanted to quit college. All those scenes never happened in the comics. The show also gave us a new scene with Rudy and Amanda. Rudy come to apologize because of, his need to fix things. They patch up, all that. Very cute. We also get to see Duplicate return, just like in the comics. She faked her death, which the show tweaked the reason why she did that, which was because she was tired of dying and was even going to walk away from the superhero life until, she became more intimate with, Immortal. But in the comics, the reason was because she came close to dying, like for real once, and that was when she decided to live a life through a clone. She also mentioned her brother, which they omitted from the show. I think they want to save that for season 3. Now, that mommy scene in the ending with the girls discovering the tomb, that whole thing is something that doesn't happen in the comics. It's just a running gag joke that the creators have inserted into the show. Even since season 1, episode 4, which the character first appeared in just a couple of minutes and just being sealed up back again. Now, Mark almost confessing to Eve is different from the comics. In the comics, like, he never went in that approach. Like, it's different. Like, I don't know how to put it. In the comics, the way they structured, Mark and Eve's, budding relationship is totally different with how they've done in the show. Certain things happened that, they didn't quite bring into the show. Like when they were going to that secret space mission, like they kissed before then. That made that whole hug that they made in the ship even more awkward. And then later on, when Mark and Amber broke up, Mark even told Amber that he had feelings for, Eve. It's certain things like that have been removed from the show. Sure, there are certain things that they have done to give hints to the audience that, these two may end up together or they like each other, especially with Eve. And of course, we are going to see them end up together in the next season, which I just can't wait. I think the next season is going to come out this year, by the ending of this year. I don't know, like, it's slated for 2024 on IMDb. So hopefully, if it is, like, I'll be really excited. I enjoyed this season, didn't like the break, but I understand, they have to take time to make the animations and all that. Also, I've done a similar video for episode 11, comparing the comics and the episode. So I do hope you check that one out. And also leave a like for this one and other videos that, you may enjoy on the channel. And also do leave a like for this one if you did enjoy it. It does help the video and the channel out. Subscribe and turn on that notification bell not to miss any new video as well. As always, Neddy Sage here. See you guys in the next one.